As many of you already know, I am MKOI's #1 fan from NA, and I typically cover them a lot on this channel, and this split has not been too strong for them so far. Unfortunately, as many of you may know, they lost 2-1 to Navi in week 1, day 1. Real quick, I'm going to pull this up so you guys can see. And they also lost to Vitality 2-1 week 2, day 2. Not really good start to the split for a team that stuck together since 2025. And when you compare them to a team like G2 and even Giant X in a way, who stuck together and saw improvement, it seems like MCOY have stuck together and yet we haven't seen them improve in their level. A comment in a previous video even said that it looks like they may have peaked in spring 2025, and that is the best we will ever get from this org ever again. And man, did that comment freak me the fuck out, because it kind of makes me feel like this team will never do much more than that. But let's talk about something really interesting that came after the loss to Navi in week 1. This interview from MKOI Melzhet, the head coach of the team. The title's a little bit clickbaity, but it actually talks about one of the key issues that I have with this interview, which was that he was talking about his players, Supa and Mirwin, and among many other things that he says throughout this interview, talking about just how disappointed he is with the team. He finally says that in terms of when asked about Mirwin and Supa, who are the only 2 members of MCOY who, despite staying with the team in 2026, have not had their contracts extended. So as of right now, they are to be removed or enter free agency at the end of the year if MCOY does not decide to re-sign them. And when asked about their development in 2026, Melzhet said, "If we look at today, they do not deserve to be renewed." Now, I don't mean to get too quickly into my opinion, but I think that's pretty inappropriate, or at the very least, very unexpected to hear from a coach. The only other coach that I think is willing to speak like this about his players, although definitely not as openly and as pointedly and as directly as Melzhet just did, was Grabs. And if you watched my last video on Grabs and how he reacted to Fnatic's losses, you might know that I think it's really annoying when coaches kind of take this easy way out, just blaming their players. I don't exactly think that's what Melzhet's doing here, but I digress. Let's get into the actual point of this video. Sorry, preview for a bunch of topics we're going to talk about. Okay, so MCOY 2025 and 2026, right? This was the roster. Actually, apologies. Where do I really want to start? Well, let's start with Mad Lions in 2021. So honestly, it's so funny. I was thinking about this as I was making these graphics. I don't know how many of you guys, when you guys started watching the LEC. I started watching the LEC end of 2020, watched Worlds that year, just the end of the summer, literally the last like 2 or 3 weeks of playoffs, into Worlds, and then I became a diehard LEC fan and LOL esports fan. So if you guys are not as boomer old as I am, you may not know that Elyoya joined the LEC in 2021, joining Mad Lions. Mad Lions at the time was like a top 3 to 4 team, really actually a top 4 team, because it was G2, Fnatic, then it was Rogue, who were really the young guys that were capable of kind of scratching Fnatic and G2, and Mad Lions were considered to be the like scrappier, less actually competitive, less put together underdogs, right? Rookies that like similar to Rogue. It was kind of like G2 Fnatic, and then you had Rogue, Mad Lions. However, in 2021, the core of Carzzy, Humanoid, and Kaiser were there since 2020. But in 2021, they signed hot rookies Elyoya and Armut, top laner and jungler. And this team absolutely popped off. They won spring of 2021 and summer of 2021 completely unexpectedly. They made top 4 of MSI, which back then it was only one team per region. And it was kind of expected that EU was going to make at least top 4, because it would be Korea, China, EU, and NA. But that year, NA did so shitty, and they had fucking Perks as their mid laner on Cloud9, and yet that year they did not make NA did not make top 4, but Mad Lions did, despite, by the way, I'm realizing I'm not even highlighting enough that in 2021 they were not expected to fucking win. This was 2021 with G2 Reckless. Like, that was a super team. Everybody expected them to win, and then if not them, they expected Rogue to win. And then, if you don't remember, especially if you are too young to know this, Elyoya and the Mad Lions reverse swept Rogue in LEC Spring Finals, making like a 10k gold lead comeback. It's insane. And then everybody thought, oh, well, since we're not sending G2 and we're not sending Rogue, EU is doomed at an international. And yet at MSI, like I said, Mad Lions would go to, excuse me. They would go to top 4. They would play against Damwon Kia, who had just won Worlds in 2020 and technically got a side grade in Nuguri to Khan. And yet they took them to 5 games, which was ridiculously impressive and better than anybody expected, with 2 rookies, right? A rookie jungler who did amazing at MSI, by the way. And then they won Summer unexpectedly again. Even though they were looking a bit stronger, it still wasn't expected they were going to win. Everybody would have thought it would either be Rogue, Fnatic, or G2. And Mad Lions does it again with a rookie jungler. They go to Worlds. They end up making top 8, which was super unexpected and a really cool tiebreaker that, man, as I'm talking about all this, I'm gushing. I wish I could actually make my green screen video so I could show you guys everything. And the conclusion is they go to Worlds, make top 8, and although they lose 0-3 to Damwon Kia again, who were the finalists of Worlds that year. So in my opinion, I think Mad Lions was truly promising despite getting 0-3'd. They would get 0-3'd, but they're losing to the tournament favorites. And damn, did Damwon Kia win MSI? I don't think they did. Anyway, they would lose to the tournament favorites, and in many games, particularly game 2, I believe, Elyoya and the Mad Lions had a massive gold lead in the early to mid game, and then through, because Western teams are not super good at closing out leads against the LCK and LPL. Not the point of this video. The point is, this is a pretty special roster, and it put Elyoya immediately on the map as one of the most desirable junglers in the LEC. However, after 2021, Carzzy and Humanoid, and I'm really going into depth about this because Carzzy and Humanoid come into the story later. Carzzy and Humanoid, at basically the peak of their stardom and relevance in the LEC, both go to different teams and get massive bags. Humanoid goes to Fnatic, Carzzy goes to Vitality. They get paid life-changing money, as both of them have talked about, and I'm sure many of you guys who call Humanoid a paycheck stealer have said. They both make mad money that year, but Elyoya stays. He's only a rookie. I don't even know if he had the opportunity to leave yet. Whatever. We follow this up with 2022. Super quick. 2022, Elyoya, again, same kind of core, Armut, Elyoya, and Kaiser. Kaiser now being the longest standing member of the team. Originally, they don't have Niski. They have a guy named Reeker, and they have Unforgiven, these 2 rookies who were really promising. And this goes into something I'm just going to touch on real quick, but we're going to talk about in more depth in just a little bit. Mad Lions was really known for their incredible scouting, as we can see as they scouted Elyoya to the league early, and they got one of the best junglers who is still extremely relevant to this day. And Armut, despite all the freaking controversies, I do think he was a phenomenal pickup in 2021. A big part of how 2021 Mad Lions was super successful, both domestically and internationally. And despite a disappointing 2022 into Ultimate Irrelevance, I still fuck with Armut. Armut, hit me up. All right. After a disappointing spring because Mad Lions just couldn't get it together, unfortunately, it seems like Reeker was to blame, despite Elyoya really working hard to try and get his mid laner ahead. And Reeker being hyped up back in the day, like Reeker literally had they had an LEC quiz and everybody was like, oh, the most promising rookie of 2022 is going to be Reeker. Turned out he wasn't. They end up letting him go because Mad Lions missed the playoffs. Now, granted, it's down here. Oh my God, I'm sorry, guys. Give me 2 seconds. I have it listed down here. So yeah, they get 7th place, as you can see down here, going 8 and 10. So they just barely missed playoffs. And this is when, playoffs was top 6 at the time. Best of 1 regular season, double round robin. And so the one change that they make going into summer was letting go of Reeker for the free agent in Niski, who was benched on Fnatic after Humanoid got picked up. Ironically, Niski and Humanoid top spots. I realize I'm going so off topic. We're supposed to talk about Melzhet. Sorry, guys, this is who I am. All right, so in summer, they end up getting 2nd place in the regular season. They have a phenomenal beginning with going I remember they just had a win streak, and then in the second half, they started to fall apart. I guess people started to figure out they were a little bit one-dimensional. And so in the playoffs, I don't think they win a single best of 3. They start in top 4, lose in the winner's side, and then lose in the loser's side. And then at the last second, I forget if it's because a country couldn't come to Worlds or something like that, the LEC gets a 4th World spot for play-ins. Mad Lions gets it, so they get to go to Worlds that year. many people is very controversial. People thought they were undeserving. They go to Worlds, and wow, I'm realizing all this stuff is like coming back to me. This is so cool. And because I really didn't write that in my script or like prepare. I don't have a script. Anyway, okay, so Mad Lions goes to Worlds, and I think they literally lose in the play-ins. Yeah, I don't think they make it to the group stage. Absolutely disappointing. And yeah, that was it. So no Mad Lions at Worlds groups. So after 2022, you would think that after such a tumultuous year, missing playoffs and kind of undeservedly making Worlds, according to some, and not making group stage, you would think that Elyoya's stock would not be high. But that could not be further from the truth. Because in fact, at the end of 2022, both Fnatic and G2, which in 2022, both teams, well, G2 is still to this day considered to be, top number one. But Fnatic at the time was still considered to be a extremely awesome team to join, org to join, and everything like that. Fnatic and G2 both expressed interest in picking up Elyoya. I realize I kind of jumped the gun getting down to this article. But yeah, both teams, you see, G2 and Fnatic were both in talks with acquiring him, despite the tumultuous year. However, as soon as we enter this conversation, you see, in addition, Elyoya's desired to land on a team with Melzhet, the former coach of G2 Arctic, and Supa, the former G2 Arctic AD carry. Now, again, I'm a little bit off script here, so I don't know how I'm going to tackle this 100%, but just understand that in 2022, Elyoya had so much stock that G2 and Fnatic had to at least entertain not only acquiring him, but two additional, a player and a coaching staff member and a head coach at that. It's not like Mickey X with Duffman, who just wants an analyst or an assistant coach to join. He wants Fnatic and G2 to replace their head coach with Melzhet, who, at least in the G2 situation, G2 was familiar with G2 Arctic. Obviously, it's their academy team. But with Fnatic, as you can see, Fnatic was originally planning to promote their academy head coach, Crusher, which ended up being a failure, and Crusher was kicked out after one split. No disrespect to Crusher, because he actually goes on Thorin's podcast, and he seems like a chill guy. But as you can see, this is really important to Elyoya. Obviously, to some extent, I bring up this second paragraph in the article. Early in the offseason, G2 had acquired Hansama and Mickey X, meaning fulfilling the aforementioned conditions asked by Elyoya were not possible. Though the conditions were not met, Elyoya was still considering the two options. Now, in this instance, they don't talk about Melzhet directly. They talk about basically not being able to fulfill the Supa request because they already committed to Hansama. And I also think that, considering G2 with Dylan Falco has obviously been super successful, and Dylan Falco is such a desirable coach, I don't know if they would have actually set him aside for Melzhet just to appease Elyoya. But anyway, now I'm just really extra highlighting the kind of intricacies of the deal. At the end of the day, after 2022, Elyoya, unfortunately, was not able to close the deal with G2. That was the team that he was really pushing for, because Mad Lions asked for $800,000 to break Elyoya out of his contract. G2 accepted it, and then at the last second before the deadline, Mad Lions counteroffers with a $1.1 million buyout, so increasing the buyout by $300,000 or 300,000 euros. And Mad Lions declined. G2 declined, which I totally respect, because that's kind of a fucked up move on Mad Lions, if you ask me. All right. Takes us to, we could talk about 2023. 2023, they have Chasey, Elyoya, Niski, Karzi, and Hillisang. They win one split. They win spring, but it's in 2023. Damn, yeah. Winter goes to G2. Spring goes to Mad Lions. Summer goes to G2. Season finals goes to G2. But Mad Lions were pretty much the second best team the whole year. Fnatic kind of squeezes in right at the very end, beating them in season finals. But I feel confident in saying that Mad Lions was basically the second best team in Europe throughout the entire year. Still, though, there was a massive gap between G2. So, at the end of 2023, I realized I should have had a picture and a number and a graphic, but I don't, so we have to deal with it. Elyoya is at a crossroads, because he is a free agent for the first time, which means there could be no Mad Lions interference. However, that at 2023, that's when G2 had Yike, and they were committing to their roster, so no opportunity for Elyoya to go to G2. and they were very happy with him, and likewise, or rightfully so, Yike is fantastic. And Fnatic was happy with Razork, which I think is really unexpected, but fuck it, there we are. Ignore that. What Elyoya ends up doing is he ends up signing a 3-year extension with the Mad Lions, which I was terrified about because I felt like you want to go on a top 2 team in order to really succeed in EU, and I was just worried that he was kind of settling for mediocrity, and my fears were only exacerbated when it turned out that not only was he finally getting Melzhet and Supa, who, by the way, up to this point, neither of them had played at the LEC level, and we have seen, maybe not at that point, but it's pretty easy to surmise that, you know, just winning in ERLs doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to dominate or even perform decent in the LEC. And although they won the LVP both spring and summer of 2023, they ultimately failed to win EU Masters, going to 5 games against KC, KC would then promote to the LEC at the same time. But essentially, Supa and Melzhet get a soft promotion because they end up signing with Mad Lions, who then went by the name Mad Lions MCOY. And that's where we get this 2024 roster of MDK, Mad Lions MCOY. Pretty iconic roster, if you ask me. Actually, I'm just going to zoom in on the boys. Okay, so interesting little tidbit here. So first and foremost, 4 rookies: Mirwin, Frescowi, Supa, and Alvaro. All rookies and all relatively young. I didn't double check Frescowi's age, but Elyoya had like I think 4 years on Mirwin and Alvaro, although Supa is he's played with Elyoya and Supa have played before, so they're only a year apart. We'll talk about that later. So this was a super risky project. Add to that they were essentially, it was kind of rumored that they were going to be, all with Mirwin and Supa and Alvaro all being from Spain, as well as Elyoya and Mad Lions being a Spanish org, and that kind of being like the core, like that seemed to be very important to the philosophy of these decisions. And finally, the fact that Ibai also came in with his brand Koi, bought a portion of the team, and that's why they went by Mad Lions Koi that year. That really freaked me out. I thought that they were just trying to be a popular team, but not necessarily be the best team. Now, 2024 was a pretty insane year. They get second in winter, which was it's a short split, and everybody else was pretty bad except for G2, who stuck together. So, and also BDS that year, who was looking really good, benched Adam at the last second, and MDK goes to 5 games with them and then just squeezes out a win. So they make it to the finals, but if you ask me, I think they really should have been third place to BDS. In spring, I forget how they finished, but they don't finish great. I think they finished like 6th, and in summer they finished 8th, and they barely made playoffs. They had to play like double tiebreakers on the final day in an absolute plot armor finish to the split. This is summer 2024. They make season finals, do have an impressive run, barely make worlds. It was chaos. It was crazy. I love these guys so fucking much. After 2024, I was a big Mirwin fan, Elyoya fan, and Alvaro fan. Supa, I actually really liked Frescowi, and I really talked him up. Supa was probably the one that I had the most issues with. Anyway, now I'm getting into my opinions, which I don't want to get into too much yet. Okay, so, what am I trying to get at? Well, then we jump to 2025. I'm giving you guys a brief, well, not so brief history here. So 2025, the big change that they made was that they brought in Jojo Pune, especially because Frescowi, the biggest criticism about him was that he didn't have the firepower, but now you're bringing in NA's freaking Prodigy, which is it really is understated how cool of a change it was at the time. It was so, we didn't have Busio yet, right? It was a one of a kind, first of its kind move. And it was to my favorite team, so I couldn't be happier. And the move was relatively successful. They had a 3rd or 4th place finish in winter, but then they win the spring split, which is pretty insane. They have a disappointing MSI, not even a decent EWC. I think they win like 1 game and that's it. And then at Worlds, they qualified for Worlds, but they were the second best team. They beat out Fnatic, who was 3rd, who barely beat out KC. It was weird. Okay. They end up being second to G2. The gap between G2 and MKOI just seemed severe at that point. And all in all, they go to Worlds and they just do not look good whatsoever. The only person that looked good to me was Jojo Pune at times, and then against the T1 series, Faker played out of his mind, outlaned Jojo Pune, who was playing like a freaking world-class player at the time. So it was just nuts. I guess T1 and Faker have plot armor. And so MCOY ends up kind of finishing 2025 in what my opinion, a little bit disappointing. Because you got to imagine, they kept 4 of the same 5 players. They technically got a straight up improvement. And they kept their coach and everything like that. Zeph as well, who ends up leaving after this year. I guess as someone who has been hearing Elyoya talk up, and now with Melzhet too, about this roster was put together to win Worlds, I was hoping that 2025 would deliver better international results, but it did not, unfortunately. Okay. We stick together for 2026, as I'm sure you all know. And it's so annoying when I accidentally zoom like that. Oh, that's even worse. Okay. 2026, the boys. So how did we do in LEC versus? Not so great. They are clearly the 3rd best team, but when you consider that they stuck together, meanwhile KC made 2 changes, although granted those 2 changes were fucking phenomenal changes. And you would just think that MCOY would improve, but it seems like they've taken a back step. And particularly, now I realize I'm so all over the map here. In 2024, my biggest issue with this team was that they had so much firepower. Mirwin's crazy picks, Elyoya's early game ganks, Alvaro joining him, Frescowi playing weird picks even, like more engaged CC picks, and just fight, but no macro, right? 2025, it seemed like they were working on their macro, but now in 2026, it just seems like, well, they lost all their fucking firepower, because I haven't seen crazy early games from Elyoya and the rest of the team in a while, and their macro is not very good. Me personally, I think that there's a comment in a previous video because I was defending Elyoya, basically saying that I feel like he is forced to like make sure that he gets all of his allies ahead, and I swear to God that shit's gonna come out soon. Like, analysts are gonna say that Mirwin and Supa are a fucking liability. I fucking promise you, and nobody's gonna fucking quote me until now. I'm telling you, I think Elyoya is held back by that because, man, is he so fucking good at getting his laners ahead. Whatever. Okay, you would think that their mid game would be better. We've been all this different promise, but they end up finishing 3rd in LEC versus, going to 5 games against KC. And the reason why you would think game 5, like, that's pretty close. I should hold it in higher regard. But the game 5 was just such a gap, especially with Yikes Kha'Zix just completely snowballing and destroying MCOY. And MCOY seeming to have like no response and no life. I was pretty disappointed. And again, in those videos that I made about MCOY, some fans have pointed out that they do think that MCOY's peak might have just been spring of 2025, and we've been promised so much. And now I'm starting to doubt, MCOY's potential along with my fellow commenters. So, most recently we're in spring, and not to jump the gun too freaking hard, but like I said, we lose to Navi in week 1, we lose to Vitality in week 2, we beat Fnatic, but Fnatic beat G2, I'm going to talk about this at some point. It's a fucking fluke, bro, I do not take it seriously. Long story short, MCOY beat Fnatic, which is they're supposed to, but they lost to 2 teams who, yes, are good, but especially the loss to Vitality hurts for one particular reason. Okay, I promise, guys, bear with me. I hope you guys like these videos. I really do. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs. We hit the 4,000 watch time hours, so we can be monetized. We just need some subs. Please sub. Thank you. If you made it to 20 minutes and you're not subbed, I don't know what to tell you. All right, so before we can get to Melzhet, we got to talk about one more thing. And let me just quickly look here. I don't know why I want to talk about this, but I guess I just have this saved. Okay, so this is Mac and Pad, the head coach and assistant coach of Mad Lions in the kind of like era of 2021 when they won back-to-back splits and went to Worlds and did well, right? Mac in particular has been with the org to an extent since 2018. He was on, he came in as the assistant coach of Splice, then the head of player development for, I believe they turned into Mad Lions in 2019, but don't quote me. It might have been in 2020. It actually might have been in 2020. 2020 I think is when it begins, because that's why it's here. But he was the assistant coach, then the head of player development, and then in 2020 to 2023, the head coach of Mad Lions. Pad would later come in 2021 to 2023 as the assistant coach of Mad Lions, and Mac and Pad were held in extremely high regard as phenomenal coaches. And when you think about the run that Mac had with the team, he was the longest standing part of Mad Lions and Splice before that. And so in a lot of ways, he was the star player or star person of the organization and the team. He is what defined them, and he defined the culture of especially Mad Lions with their fun-loving, crazy, balls-to-the-wall attitude that Carzy and Humanoid, believe it or not, were both famous for. Yeah, if you don't know, both Mac and Pad have an extremely silly, fun, let's take it easy approach to coaching, right? And particularly, by the way, they have an extremely notable, Mac is extremely famous for being good at player development, for scouting. Again, like I said, he is likely the one who scouted, partially scouted Humanoid, scouted Carzy and Kaiser, scouted Elyoya and Armut, and would later scout Linkus to Vitality, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So, what am I getting at here? He was the core of Mad Lions, and he brought a fun-loving attitude to the team. Now, I don't mean to get too ahead of myself here, but that seemed to jive very much with, one second. That seemed to jive very much with sorry, not with Melzhet. That seemed to jive very much with Humanoid and Carzy, who were more go with the flow, chill guys. But when it came to Elyoya, it seemed like this did not mesh very well. So this video is from Worlds 2021, and Elyoya, as a rookie, and this is one of my, despite what I'm about to say later about Elyoya and Melzhet, kind of I don't like their mentalities, this moment literally made me an Elyoya fan. I was not paying attention to Mad Lions in 2021, believe it or not. I was a Fnatic fan, but this moment changed my entire opinion, and I was just so impressed to see a rookie being the one leading his fucking team. Like, that is absurd. Yelling at them, telling them what they're doing wrong. Meanwhile, everybody else in the room, with maybe the exception of Armut, had more experience than him. That is so impressive to me, to see him come in here and just basically tell his team what's what. I think that's badass. There's another clip that I randomly wanted to show you guys. Oh, another example of, I believe, Elyoya not really jiving with the leadership style of Mac and Pad is this iconic moment from, this is from winter of 2023. The Lion's Den, which is a documentary about Mad Lions' winter split in 2023. So here.
That's not playing too fast. I cannot play early game.
What, because of drafts?
Because of how the game goes. I need to be perma in every single wave. I have no info. I need to be all time. I can't even farm anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Please don't say, yeah, I agree. Like, I mean...
What do you want to say then?
I don't want to say anything.
I think we'll take a break, because this is really bad.
Dude.
I agree. Dude, do you guys agree? I think you should take a break and like take a walk or something, because this is very not good.
Yeah.
Don't you go into the next game and reset?
Yeah.
And fuck whatever happened in game 1 and 2 and just play the game.
I agree.
Alright, so basically this was super controversial at the time. You know, it was mainly about Elyoya and Niski, but as you could see, maybe at the very end of that clip, Niski seemed to line up, or rather, head coach Mac seemed to line up with Niski's attitude of being angry and trying to fix the problem right now is not what's going to work. What's actually going to work is kind of resetting the mental and trying to be happy and have fun, things like that. And actually, that's one of the really cool parts about Mad Lions 2021, which again, if you guys weren't around at that time, you wouldn't know this. Mad Lions in 2021 was a super goofy team. I actually think what was really interesting about them was that they very much gave the vibe of 2019 G2, who kind of took nothing seriously because they thought they were so good. In Mad Lions' case, they kind of didn't think that they were that good. They just, I don't know. As Carzy has said many times in interviews, it's so much easier to make a comeback when you're feeling good. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly how he said it, but it's something to that effect. Notably, before summer playoffs or before summer finals, Mad Lions were doing so bad in scrims that they just outright stopped scrimming, and freaking Armut was like eating hamburgers and playing other games, and Humanoid was playing WoW, and it wasn't that they weren't talking to each other. They just weren't talking to each other about work and League of Legends, and yet they were phenomenal. They not only won the LEC, which you could argue was weaker because G2 wasn't doing too hot, but again, they performed internationally and they were good. So in my opinion, I think it leads credibility to the fact that mentality and Mac and Pad's leadership style of being more, let's make sure our mental is good actually works, right? And this is seen today in Team Vitality, where Mac and Pad have since gone. Now, if you compare 2024 and 2020, they left in 2024. Yeah, 2024 and 2025 Vitality to MDK and MCOY. Yeah, I think anybody would take MCOY and MDK over Vitality just based on results and a few other factors, right? But apologies to keep jumping back and forth here. Just gotta make sure my privacy's safe. As we know, this year,
I think last year was the worst it has ever been.
1 second.
Worst it has ever been.
You guys are already getting a preview. 1 second. As you guys already know, Humanoid rejoined the team, right? Or not rejoined the team, but he reunited with Carzzy. And that was kind of the talking point that everybody was hyping up. Oh my God, Humanoid Carzzy, because they are very, very good friends. Like, it's not just like decent teammates, a good working relationship. Is like, no, they actually really, really like each other, which is funny because Humanoid always has that attitude of like being aloof and Mr. Cool Guy, but it turns out that he actually really freaking likes Carzzy on a personal level, and also supposedly he's hella chill behind the scenes. People just think he's a douche, I guess. But really the reunion of those two with Mac is really the part that I think is understated. On top of that, if you compare to kind of like, like I said about the I said this in my first video about way back when, maybe it was the video, the undeserving Los Ratones. I don't remember, whatever. Point is, you have a Turkish top laner like Armut, a kind of like a promising rookie jungler. I know Linkus isn't a rookie, but still, rookie that was scouted by Mac for sure. Humanoid and Carzzy, and then Fleshy, a more understated support with black hair. I don't know. Anyway, you literally have a very similar kind of construct to Mad Lions in 2021. And as we can see with Mac's more laid back and fun, attitude and mindset on how this team should approach playing. And as we can see here in this video,
in my life, I think last year was the worst it has ever been in my life. And on the contrary, I think this year is the best it has ever been. So I think, I think it's a pretty big swap.
Yeah. So Humanoid spoke about how his mental health has never been better, which, and honestly, there's another clip that I want to show you guys. I know this is just one moment, so I know you could pick apart evidence, you could find moments here and there. I haven't been watching freaking as religiously as I usually do, so unfortunately. So I would probably way more defend my points, but whatever. Anyway, just check this out. So in a few seconds, we'll see. We're gonna see Humanoid just smurf on Jojo Pune. And I actually watched this live and I remember just being like, dude, what the hell? Look at Jojo just go in for no reason. I don't know what he was expecting to get.
He is a little bit, isn't he? Well, why not?
And so you see Humanoid, who everybody's been shitting on all fucking last year or whatever, or for his whole time in Fnatic, is actually doing really, really fucking good. And everybody's hyping up Vitality. A huge reason because Humanoid is also kind of back. He stepped up. And in my opinion, he's kind of smurfing on Jojo. I don't know. There's an argument outside of Yahoo and, well, I think I'd probably put him over Poby. I think besides Yahoo, Humanoid might be like third best mid laner. Vladdy for sure is not consistent enough to be considered top 3 right now, at least. I don't know. I need to go back and watch that Fnatic series versus G2 to see if there's any more promise there, but not last split he wasn't. So anyway, I think Humanoid's stock is all the way back up. Really, the point I'm trying to get at is that I think there's a lot of validity to Mac and Pad's positive coaching style that I think unfortunately Elyoya seems to underrate, right? So sorry, this part I just want to like bring up a few facts, and maybe once I say them I'll remember why I wanted to talk about them. And finally, actually I realized what I wanted to talk about. So Melzhet, now I have to go back one more time, so bear with me guys, do not leave, don't leave. So I have 3 clips of Melzhet. that I want to show you guys if you've never seen before, because in my opinion, I think Melzhet is a bit rough with the players.
You, all of you, right now. Fucking disappointed with you, all of you, right now. It's insane. Not a single fucking engage. We didn't play anything. We are cocky. We are so fucking relaxed before a game. This is the last fucking time that you're joking before a game starts. The last fucking time. Is no fucking way that you take another game in fucking LEC this lightly. No way. Yesterday super fucking tryhard because it's due to today is BDS is free win or what? This is the last fucking time. And you cannot be shot caller and shot calling like this. If you shot calling depends on fucking motivation, we are doomed. Come on. And you stop and you start being more humble. Okay? And work better because it's unacceptable how we fucking play with leads in bot lane and do anything in the game. Like zero impact in the fucking game. Zero fucking impact.
Okay, now I don't mean to jump around a lot here. And look, you see, League needs more coaches like this to go to the next level. That is interesting. Then people ask why players love coaches like Yamato. Hope they do good enough so orgs start hiring coaches like this one and players start to train. Okay, I disagree with that. Me personally, I think that this harshness is actually not the best. I want to point out that was from 2024, right? That was from 2024. Melzhet yelling at the players. Now I know he's not he's not like screaming. He's not losing his fucking mind. I'm not saying I'm not a pussy. I'm like it's not my style, but I don't think he's doing anything like inappropriate or completely incorrect. But I want to say that in this interview with Melzhet up here, he is kind of highlighting it's different, but it's like. If I was harsh on Grabs, then I gotta be harsh on Melzhet. And it's just like here he talks about how they're not exactly lazy. Where is it? Where is it? Hold up, sorry. I think is the current MCOY team lazy in some ways? I think the players are too, not lazy, that is probably not the best word to describe it, but I think they are too reactive. Okay, I get it. But the thing is, and this is what I said about Grabs and in a video that I did on my main channel, comparing Dardo and Grabs to G2 coaching staff, is that is what you are there for. You are there to be some level of discipline. And that applies to real sports too. Like there are players like Shaquille O'Neal, right? Back in the NBA that I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if the fucking NBA to LEC crossover here. But back in the day, Shaq did not train, right? He got lazy and then he started underperforming. And then I don't know exactly how the story goes, but I think Kobe kind of motivated him or something. And then Shaq started working out and then he was phenomenal again. So even like professional sports players could sometimes get lazy and they need outside resources to keep them disciplined. So it kind of brings back like this question that I had about Grabs, which is like, what is he bringing to the table? Because it just kind of feels like all Melzhet is doing is just saying, I'm disappointed in you guys. You guys are playing like shit. And I'm like, yeah, they don't need another person to tell them that. What they need is someone who's actually sitting there and not in interviews talking about, oh, the players aren't doing this and doing that. To me, as soon as a coach is saying my players are not doing XYZ, it is a failure on the coaches, not the players, okay? G2, do you think that under worse supervision, Caps would not sleep in? Of course he would. Of course Caps would sleep in. I promise you, outside of G2's management and infrastructure, Caps, Hansama, Broken Blade, do you notice that all of them lose weight? All of them get hotter? All of them fucking start working out? It's because G2's infrastructure actually improves those players. G2 made the players do presentations. I glaze G2's coaching staff because outside of the fact that they're probably already best in the fucking biz when it comes to league knowledge, on top of that, they got Romain and Isma, who I believe are the ones that are driving G2's professionalism and discipline. And I'm just like, I don't know, is Melzhet supposed to be a motivational coach? Because then I got another clip for you. It is a part of my 3 clips about that I'm not super happy with Melzhet about. Give me a second. Yeah, watch this. Okay. 1 second.
Very far though, so let's just play slow. Orange very far. Is there no E right now?
1 second. Okay, watch this.
Yeah. Nice. Good call, guys.
Melzhet will have a talk, guys.
Let's not
So they just lost a really costly team fight, and he says, and JoJo jokes that Melzhet will have a talk.
be scared to fight, okay? I mean, that we aren't.
No, I think it's the opposites, no?
Yeah, I think
So you see, JoJo Pune and Elyoya are smiling, they're laughing. They're 0-2, but they're still, feeling some, like they're trying to get that happiness up, that hope, right?
we are maybe
And it seems like Alvaro's a little bit scared here, and so JoJo Pune and Elyoya are trying to keep the moods high, the vibes high.
that we aren't.
No, I think it's the opposites, no?
Yeah, I think we are maybe a bit too less scared to fight.
No,
At least if we want to fight, just look at each other.
Shut the f up. Shut the f up. Is actually what he's saying. You are scared to fight for the spots that you need to
Yes,
fight.
yes.
It's not about the fighting like.
We are giving
You don't need to
position
be
for free.
give them up for free.
Yes.
You need to move your to fight.
We win.
I mean, to me, I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but like, you see, he kind of just shut down their mood. And it's like, oh shit, don't joke around because freaking, the like dad's here or whatever. And I don't know, man. To me, it just feels like Melzhet is just very harsh, right? And I don't think that's what they needed in that moment. I think they needed to just keep the spirits high and, I think on top of that, it's like, where is the discipline? You know what I mean? And it's like, so how it's been described to me many times is that the head coach isn't always supposed to be the super duper knowledgeable one about league. I mean, Dylan Falco, I think, is kind of the exception a little bit. And Yamato Cannon knows about coaching too, but I think a lot of his is motivation and like organizing and team therapists or whatever. But with Melzhet, I'm just like, I feel like he's just like kind of like beating them down and telling them how much what they're doing is not enough. And again, when you compare it to what I said about 2021, which by the way, it's not like I just said it and came up with it. This is the truth. This is what they've all said in interviews. In 2021, freaking Armut was in his room like eating burgers. I don't know why that's what comes to mind. Watch the sack down with Dom and Yamato Cannon. They talk about it. Like Armut was in his room, Humanoids playing WoW, they're fucking dog shit in scrims, and they win the LEC. Now, I do know that in 2025, obviously, Elyoya and JoJo Pune talked about how hard they worked to win that championship, and I'm super proud of them. I couldn't have been more proud. It was a fucking awesome time to be an MKOI fan. But why did that stop? Because that sounds exactly to me like the motivation and discipline being emotion-based. Right? When it should be discipline-based. It should be happening whether you're tired, whether you're sad, whether you're scared, whatever the fuck it is, right? Despite the emotion, you still put in the work. And to me, it's like if the coaches are not going to be bringing in the knowledge and the analysis, and it's more about motivation and discipline, and there's shortcomings in motivation and discipline, like, I wish Melzhet would say, I'm falling short. I am not keeping these boys accountable. That I would respect. That I would be like, absolutely, bro. Yep. Your players are not doing their shit, and that is a bit on you, but it also is on them. I could deal with like a 50-50 split, but to me, it just is constantly like them. It's their fault. And it's getting into the territory of what Grab said, where it's like, well, they don't want to listen, so now I need to threaten them. How come G2 doesn't need to threaten people? How come G2 does not need to threaten anybody? I guess you could say, because there's like a little bit conspiracy theory in the back of my mind. Maybe Mickey got lazy or Yike got, I don't think Yike got lazy. I think they really saw more promise in Skewmon and it's fucking paying off. But maybe Mickey got lazy and they threw him out and to replace him with Lebrov, who's seems to be extremely hardworking. I'm not sure, right? But they definitely didn't do it for an academy team. And they currently have Mirwin and Supa under threat of not being re-signed. So that's where this comes in. Sorry, guys. I really hope to God this is decent to follow. So this is the global contract database. It's not fucking accurate, which is really annoying because it says all the players with the exception of Alvaro are signed to 2027. That's not true because Elyoya is at the very least as of fucking December of 2025 signed to MCOY until 2027 with a potential to extend to 2028. Alvaro just extended to 2028, although I think this is like fucking hella recent. I don't know when this came out. And as you can see from the Sheep Esports tweet, Melzhet, Elyoya, JoJo Pune, and Alvaro all extended to 2027. So JoJo Pune should also be updated if I'm not mistaken. The only technicality here is that it says are in negotiations. So technically we don't know if it ever went through 100%. But anyway, Supa and Mirwin have the pressure of not being re-signed. They have all the pressure that they need to not fucking you know, like to step it up, right? And they're not right now. I don't know. Even Mirwin, I don't care for Supa as much. I don't dislike him. I don't hate him for sure. But Mirwin I fucking love. And right now I'm very disappointed with his performance. I don't think he's showing up. And they got him an assistant coach / positional coach in fucking Alfari, who's a phenomenal top laner who improved Broken Blade of all things. So you would expect a high level of change in Mirwin, and there has not been yet. So I don't know, man. I'm just like, that is really the truth, is that I just don't know what to say. The last thing that fucking weirds me out is that, well, here I want to point something out real quick. Melzhet has been with Frescawi, Supa, and Alvaro since LVP Summer 2022. So that's 3 splits before joining the LEC. I'm not going to say 4 splits because 2024 is a fucked up year, but just, you know, another... So 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 4 years together, plus half a year because of this 2022 summer, right? So 4.5 years with Supa and Alvaro. And then... You know, Elyoya's been begging for this guy. He lines up with Elyoya's kind of like ideas about leadership and motivation and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm gonna be honest, I lost my train of thought a little bit. I'm trying to remember what point I'm trying to make here. I think my point is this. Now, I had it here somewhere, but I guess I don't. So what's really crazy, where is it? I thought I had it somewhere. I guess if I don't have it, I don't have it. Melzhet, where the fucking sorry guys, sorry. Do not leave. Don't leave. Melzhet, right here. Melzhet is signed till 2028. They signed Elyoya and Melzhet sort of together, right? So Melzhet joined because of Elyoya. Elyoya is the captain. He's the centerpiece of MCOY. Melzhet got signed because of Elyoya. And then when it came to contract extensions, Elyoya got extended to 2027 with a clause in his contract that says that he can extend to 2028 based on certain objectives being completed. But Melzhet immediately got the 2028 gig off rip. So he is head coach until 2028, which blows my mind. Because Elyoya, the proof is in the fucking pudding. He won without Melzhet. He won 3 times without Melzhet. And now with Melzhet and arguably weak players, he has won titles again. Right? I don't give all that credit to Melzhet, especially if Melzhet's not bringing game knowledge, which Elyoya is. And when Elyoya is criticizing the team, he always criticizes himself. Always criticizes my fucking goat Elyoya. If you guys follow MCOY, you know all he does is fucking say that he is not happy with his performance. Always. And I wish I would hear some of that from Melzhet. Now, maybe that's bad leadership, right? Maybe a leader shouldn't expose weakness and say, I'm scared, I'm fucking bad, right? Obviously, maybe he should keep up a tough front. I don't know. I'm trying to give him any benefit of the doubt I can think of. But it just, to me, is so weird that they're putting so much value in him. And I don't know if it's this machismo, fucking hypermasculine, like, oh, he's tough, he yells. But to me, it's like, no, you know who's actually successful? The teams that keep the vibes high. Like Mad Lions in 2021. And I don't mean to over-index on that, but show me a harsh coach that has gotten their team to then win. Because like I showed you in this clip...
Too less scared. Too high.
No, at least if we want to fight, just look at each other.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And they lose game 3 and they lose the finals. Right? So it didn't work. It didn't work. And I'm not going to dig into it now because I should have done a little bit, just a tiny bit, not much, but a little bit more research and pulled up maybe the voice comms from their spring win, right? But I'm sure vibes were high. Even, oh my God, I'm going to toot my own horn for a quick second. I got to don't leave. I like saying that. It's very funny. Don't leave. In this video of mine from a few years ago, look at me, long hair, handsome. What am I trying to show you guys? Okay, game 3. Okay, so at the end of game 1, this is Mad Lions versus G2 versus MDK 2024 season finals, I believe, right? And Elyoya is smiling at the end of losing game 1 to G2. No fucking panic. He is smiling, right? Same thing as their clutch comeback to make playoffs in the first place. And then in game 3, at the end of game 3, Mirwin, who entered the game, I know this script like the back of my hand, I watch this video all the
essentially
time.
cost his team the game. What the fuck does this guy know?
He's smiling. So it's when the mood is good, that is what gets you to pull off miracle comebacks, win game 5s. Not this fucking yelling. Look at his face. He's just like, whoop, got yelled at by the teacher. In my opinion, the leadership style of Melzhet is not my favorite. Now, I will give 2 counter arguments here. Here, MKOI Elyoya on Melzhet's comments, I don't see it as Melzhet being harsh. He has been realistic about the objectives that we as a team have set. These are really high objectives, and with that, what we've shown, we are not going to reach them. Melzhet talked about Super and Mirwin, but I can tell you myself that with the performance I had against Navi, we are not going to get the results we are aiming for. See, that's what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, in that instance, Elyoya is defending Melzhet, right, and representing him well. But in my opinion, that's what I want to see from a leader, is actually his own accountability, not blaming his team. Now, I'm not saying that Melzhet's straight up throwing his team under the bus, but I don't know, I'm just not thrilled with that, especially considering that he's worked with Super for so long, but maybe he knows Super and how to get the best out of him. I don't fucking know. The last thing, this actually just came out. Like, it actually blows my mind, because I didn't even see this in all my research, and then just before I hit record, this came out, I think. MKOI Alvaro on Melzhet, I would prefer him to be like this than many coaches that are NPCs. And the full quote, he is really passionate about what he does and really wants us to improve because he has also seen the potential and how good we are in other moments. And basically, he wants us to be at our peak. He was just pushing us. And I think at that point, it's just either how you handle it. People can be surprised by it. I saw it in social media, how things have been said, but I think it's pretty normal. I agree with him. Yada, yada, yada. I think we have to step up as individuals and as a team. I will say one last thing in defense of Melzhet. I do also understand that G2, as much as I fucking glaze them, I don't know what they're like behind the scenes, right? That is a fair criticism, because G2 is very much like, does not share like the painful bad parts about the behind the scenes. Whereas orgs like MCOY and Fnatic are way more transparent, almost to a fault. So in that way, maybe the other teams are just as harsh and I'm being naive. But anyway, honestly, to be completely honest with you guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my opinion on coaching style. I think that it's weird to me that Melzhet is extended till 2028. Meanwhile, Elyoya isn't, although Alvaro just got re-signed to 2028, and Elyoya is probably going to be as well. It's also crazy that, like, I don't know, they just see so much promise in each other. Anyway, now we're getting into territory. I do want to do a video on Super to follow this up, but that's getting into territory of other topics, so let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hope you loved it. Subscribe if you made it this fucking far and you still haven't subscribed. You're crazy, trying to hit 1,000 subs to be monetized, yada, yada, yada. And let's just get out of here. Look at my bed, it looks crazy. All right, I'll see you guys later. All right, peace out. Peace out. Peace out.